Live from Juba, on air and online.
This is iRadio News.
Hello, this is iRadio 1 o'clock news. First, here are the headlines. President Salva Kiir has held bilateral talks with the President of the Democratic Republic of the Congo in Juba. An official says efforts to evacuate cattle keepers from Magui County of Eastern Equatorial State are underway. And authorities in Melut County of Upper Nile State have signed a contract with 100 South Sudanese teachers using its oil money. These are stories and more coming to you in this news bulletin with me, Helen Samuel. Now, the news in detail. President Salva Kiir has held bilateral talks with the President of the Democratic Republic of Congo in Juba. President Felix Tshisekedi arrived in Juba on Saturday. It is the first time a sitting Congolese president has visited South Sudan since its independence. The heads of state discussed a number of issues including security, cross-border trade, and infrastructure development. Addressing the press after the meeting yesterday, President Salva Kiir said he looks forward to furthering engagement on areas of mutual interest with his counterpart.
We have talked mostly about the trade and security at our borders. I congratulated the President and expressed our full support to him and the Congolese people on their country's recent admission to the East African community. We know that there are problems in our common border, but we will work hard to solve those problems. We touched on the revitalized peace agreement with His Excellency and particularly on the progress achieved so far as well as some challenges. That calls for a negotiated settlement to this conflict. More details of the areas discussed will be worked out and finalized by our respective teams.
For his part, President Felix emphasized on the construction of a road connecting the two countries in order to enhance trade and food security. The two leaders are expected to sign a memorandum of understanding soon. An official says efforts to evacuate cattle keepers from Magui County of Eastern Equatorial State are underway. The revelation comes after a meeting between the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, Deng Dao, and the UN Humanitarian Coordinator, Sarah Beisolo Nyanti, at the weekend. For months now, authorities in Eastern Equatoria have been calling on the national government to move out the herders. They have also appealed to humanitarian actors for an emergency relief aid to over 5,000 internally displaced persons in the area. Following the Saturday's meeting, the Director of International Organizations in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs says work to evacuate the cattle keepers is in progress. David Baum was speaking to reporters over the weekend.
Honorable Minister also expressed the government commitment in making sure that the cattle keepers in Magui County do return to their original states. That is a policy of the government in order to make sure that peace is prevailing there in Magui County. That is in the work in progress. All the cattle keepers will go back to Jonglei or Lakes estates.
In 2017, President Salva Kiir issued a decree ordering cattle keepers to move all their livestock out of the greater Equatoria region. A committee was then set up to ensure that the animals were returned to their respective states. However, the decree seems not to have been implemented due to unclear reasons. Authorities in Melut County of Upper Nile State have signed a contract with 100 South Sudanese teachers using its oil share. Deng Jau is the area commissioner. He says the teachers will be deployed in 11 primary schools and 2 secondary schools across the country. There are 35 teachers for secondary level and 65 for primary schools. According to Joe, the primary and secondary school teachers will each earn a unified monthly salary of $300. He said the oil-rich producing county will also cater for their accommodation, feeding, medical, and entertainment needs. Commissioner Joe revealed that the hired teachers' salaries will be raised from the 3% oil revenue allocation to the area by the National Ministry. He stated that the county has already signed a contract with a local company to be responsible for the welfare of the teachers. The teachers are expected to arrive in the area early this week. Commissioner Deng Jau spoke to iRadio in an exclusive interview over the weekend in Juba.
إذا عقدنا مع 100 معلم عندنا 100 معلم في طريقهم لمولود العام 100 معلم ده هيخطط 7 فعيامات بتاع المولود السياسة بتاعنا إنه عايزين نطبق رؤية بتاعت الحركة الشعبية إنه نقل المدن للريف نقول إنه ما ده نكلف عيالنا أو في الريف يجوا مدينة عشان نوصل التعليم للطفل في أي محل فال100 معلم ده هيكون على تغطية للمستوى بتاعت فعيامات 7 مولود فيها 11 مدرسة فيها 2 ثانوية وكلها هيكون في تغطية للمعلمين عام جيت جوبا عشان نوظف أوضاعهم على إنه خلال الأسبوع الجاي هيبقوا يبلغوا مولود يعني. نحن اتفقنا معهم إنه المرتبات بتكون في حدود بتاع $300 350 مع الإعاشة بتاعهم بيكون على المقاطعة العلاج بتاعهم هيكون على المقاطعة الترحيل بتاعهم هيكون على المقاطعة الترفيه بتاعهم حاجات كلها هيكون على المقاطعة فأنت هتصرف 300 بدون ما تكون عندك أي صرف تاني فوق يعني.
Melut County has about 500 oil wells with a production of more than 120,000 barrels per day. According to the Petroleum Management Act, 2% of net oil revenue goes to the producing state, while 3% is for development projects in the producing communities. But the concerned government institutions have reportedly been violating the provisions. Early last year, Stephen Deudau, the chairman of Melut Community, told iRadio that the county committee has finally received $3 million in oil shares into installments. According to the report of the Auditor General on the accounts of 3% from 2011 to 2020, the Ministry of Finance and Planning shall ensure transparency and accountability and should proportionately distribute the 3% transfer to the state and communities. You're listening to news coming to you from iRadio. The National Ministry of Petroleum has launched the use of geological data center in Juba. The $3.7 million facility, implemented in a period of 1 year, became operational since last week. According to the Undersecretary in the Ministry of Petroleum, Award Daniel Chuang, it is for keeping important data, especially on hydrocarbon, minerals, and other geoscientific information. It will also help university students and companies to carry out their scientific research in the country's geophysical data, I mean to say. Award Daniel Chuang spoke to the media on Friday during the opening ceremony.
So South Sudan Geophysical Company will be one of the important companies that will be used in the region far and wide. And I'm sure even organizations that are working in this country also will use this facility for mapping. There may be disasters as well. When you have floods, when you have any, maybe birds or whatever, you want to spot all the disasters, you can use this aircraft for mapping. So this capability for us, we should be proud of. And the Ministry of Petroleum is working very hard to make sure that the vision of this country is realized, that we develop this country through our resources, and we make sure that we maximize the value of our resources. We cannot do this if we don't own all information.
According Accordingly, Awo Daniel Chuang, the ministry says, purchased 3 aircrafts for mapping and collecting data on hydrocarbon minerals and crops. And lastly, before the international news, Jonglei State government and partners will soon start infrastructure projects, including the construction of dikes to mitigate floods in Bor Town. On Friday last week, the government and partners launched an $11 million project to mitigate the impact of flooding and other climate change-induced disasters in the state. The project, funded by the Kingdom of Netherlands, will be implemented by the International Organization for Immigration, IOM. It aims to bolster the capacity of the government to develop an early warning system and climate-resilient infrastructure. This is to reduce the impact of flooding in Bor and the surrounding areas. John Samuel Manyun is the spokesperson in Jonglei State government. He spoke to iRadio about the initiative this morning.
There was only a consultation meeting and the launch of the project with the partners. Generally, the bigger picture is all about how to mitigate flood in Jonglei, particularly in Bor. Is majorly focusing in Bor, not other counties. So it's to see how best to reduce the effect of flooding that has been happening for the past 3 years, include maybe the dikes, construction, improving the drainage system.
Recent weather and climate-related disasters have resulted in a heavy burden of fatalities, displacing over 500,000 people in 2011 alone. In 2020, flash floods in Bor Town submerged nearly 200,000 households in Jonglei State. You're listening to iRadio Afternoon News, and now to the international scene, brought to you by MTN.
متى تفوق زاك في محل
Nejma, Wahid, Sifir, Nejma, Tarata, Nejma, Arba, Pusilim, Weta Biliko Kamis, touch the giga be Mia Ginebes, who come until the tin the giga, be Mia comes in Ginebes, Fium, Kabel Walai, the Uria, the Leola, the Uria.
And now Yara Jack is here with the stories from the international arena. Good afternoon, Yara.
Good afternoon, Helen Samuel, and now let's have a look at stories making headlines in the region and international scene. Nigerian authorities have been accused of failing to ensure justice for the killing of ENSA protesters in 2020, 6 months after a judicial panel implicated security force. Human Rights Watch has tasked the government to act on the panel's recommendations and hold those responsible to account. The report of the judicial panel of inquiry should not be swept under the rug without any consequences for those responsible for killing and injuring protesters, it said. In a statement, it said failure to act on the panel's recommendation will send a painful message to victims and risk encouraging more violence by security officers. Elsewhere, the authorities in Mozambique say over 14,000 HIV patients have abandoned antiretroviral therapy in the first 3 months of the year in the central province of Zambezia. Male patients form the largest part of those no longer taking the drugs, according to Dr. Cheineza, the provincial head of the HIV program in the region. He blamed stigma and prejudice associated with HIV for the high rate of defaulters. Over 300,000 patients receive HIV antiretroviral care in Zambezia province. And finally, U.S. First Lady Jill Biden has met her Ukrainian counterpart Olena Zasenka in Ukraine as Washington announced further sanctions on Moscow. The two First Ladies met at the school in the border point of Uzhhorod. It was Mrs. Zasenka's first appearance in public since the Russian invasion of Ukraine began on 24th of February. The U.S. imposed new sanctions, including visa caps on 2,600 Russians and Belarusians individuals in response to the Russian invasion. 3 Russian TV stations and executives from Gazbomka Bank were also sanctioned by Washington, D.C. And those are the latest stories making headlines in the region and international scene. And back to you, my colleague in the studio, Helen Samuel.
Thank you so much, Yar Ajak, for the roundup of the stories making headlines in the international arena. And from the sports desk, here is Emmanuel Joseph Akile.
We begin with local football, where the giant Nasser FC of Juba have been relegated to second division after more than 70 years in the first division. This happened on Sunday after the team lost their 2 playoff games on 2-0 aggregate. Nasser FC was the first ever team from South Sudan to represent the nation in the CAF after independence in 2012. The team has been facing some administration challenges this season. Meanwhile, Gambia Federation has confirmed the date and venue for their game against South Sudan in AFCON 2023 next month. The game will take place on 4th of June at Ladior Stadium in Senegal. This after the CAF banned Gambia Stadium from hosting international games. Elsewhere, Atletico Madrid beat city rivals and La Liga champions Real Madrid to put themselves on the verge of qualifying for the Champions League. With the title wrapped up, Real made 7 changes following their dramatic win over Manchester City on Wednesday. Atletico started strongly and Yannick Carrasco converted what proved to be the winner from the penalty spot after Matheus was brought down. Diego Simeone's side remained 4th, 6 points clear of Real Betis in 5th. Arsenal took a huge step towards securing Champions League football next season as they saw off an ill-disciplined Leeds United with the 10-man visitors dropping into the Premier League relegation zone. It was a 4th successive win for Mikel Arteta's side and one that puts them firmly in the driving seat for a top 4 spot before Thursday's North London derby at Tottenham. And finally, Manchester City shrugged off their disappointment of their Champions League semi-final exit at Real Madrid to sweep aside Newcastle United and open a 3-point lead at the top of the Premier League. The reigning champions took advantage of Liverpool's draw with Tottenham Hotspur with an impressive response that not only strengthened their position at the Premier League summit but also markedly improved their goal difference. That's all from the world of sports, and back to you, Helen Samuel.
Thank you, Emmanuel Joseph Akile. You are listening to iRadio News, and to end this bulletin, here are the headlines again. President Salva Kiir has held bilateral talks with the President of the Democratic Republic of the Congo in Juba. An official says efforts to evacuate cattle keepers from Magui County of Eastern Equatorial State are underway. And authorities in Melut County of Upper Nile State have signed a contract with 100 South Sudanese teachers using its oil money. And that's the end of iRadio Afternoon News. You can also get these stories and updates by subscribing to iRadio News Alerts on your MTN South Sudan number. Call 700 or dial *700# and follow the instructions. If there is a story or an event you like iRadio to cover or report about, please send us a text message on +211 925 287 870. It's also our WhatsApp number. Follow us on Twitter at iRadio Juba. Like our Facebook page iRadio and subscribe to our YouTube channel iRadio South Sudan. You can also visit our website and listen to us online at www.iradio.org. Stay tuned for the news in Arabic at 1:30. I'm Helen Samuel. Thank you for listening.